Delighted to be talking to Marcel van der Kraan, Dutch football journalist. Marcel, thanks so much for being with us. I want to talk to you about Spurs' Dutch connections. We've had a few players, some hits, some misses. I'm just going to name them: Johnny Method, Sagers, Willem Korsten, remember him? Edgar Davids, Rafa van der Vaart, obviously, Vorm, Vincent Janssen, Steven Bergwijn, Arnett Down-Juma, a little loan for him, and currently Mickey van der Veen. Some hits, some misses. Just firstly, how Tottenham perceived in Holland, but also I want to talk about Van der Ven. How's he perceived, just breaking into the Dutch team? So how do they see him at the moment?
Well, we start with Mickey. I think everybody's really excited to see a player break into Tottenham's first team in such a way as he's done. Because, as you just mentioned, the list of players, it's not easy to get into a Spurs side. And I've always compared Tottenham Hotspur very much to Feyenoord, like a big club in a big city, and not always as successful as Ajax in Holland or PSV Eindhoven, and yet great tradition, huge crowds, beautiful stadium. So the bar is always set high, and the expectations are big for players. And because of those expectations, some Dutch players have not found it easy. And Mickey has just come in, and without any kind of worries, he seems to be completely unaffected when he goes on the pitch. And the Dutch people thought, well, this guy needs a chance in the Dutch team. And Ronald Koeman said, look, let's see how he does at Spurs, how he gets into the team. And Ronald Koeman, as the Dutch national coach, is finally really convinced that this boy can play in the Dutch national team too. And I'm really happy for him, because Spurs is seen in Holland as one of the real big clubs. I know that everybody goes on about Man United and Erik ten Hag and all the former Ajax players. Liverpool at the moment with Arne Slot is great. Man City, there's never really been a big Dutch connection, but everybody admires Pep Guardiola because he plays the Cruyff football. So there's a little Dutch link. But if we go to London, wow, Spurs, everybody likes it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like with Dutch players in Tottenham, Spurs are a maverick club. You mentioned Feyenoord. I think we're a maverick club. When you get a maverick like Rafa van der Vaart, for example, who's just going to come and play his football, or Mickey van der Ven, who I think is a maverick centre-back, the way he takes the ball and goes, that's just always going to appeal to Spurs fans. But modern-day Tottenham, and I always say this to anybody that I ever talk to, modern-day Tottenham, the man that took us from being a bit of a joke of a club in the late 90s, early noughties, was Martin Jol. He is the godfather of modern-day Tottenham. He's the one that re-established Tottenham in that top five, re-established Tottenham in Europe, started making us hard to beat again. Talk to us a little bit about Martin Jol. What's he up to now? Where's he at? And just, my love for him is huge. So just tell us a bit about Martin.
All of our love, really.
Well, there's a funny story here, maybe, which I can mention with Martin. I've always got on well with him. And he's not an easy guy to get on with, but because he's got his own personality, he's got a strong personality. And like what I just said about Mickey van der Ven, seems to be unaffected by anything. Martin at the same, he just does his thing. And I've always liked it when a manager has played in England when he comes and manages a club. And Martin had that, in the 80s when I used to live in England myself for a while. He was in the Midlands. He was brilliant with his, strong physique. And when he came to Spurs, it wasn't always easy because there wasn't a lot of money. There was expectations from him. And I was really following everything about him. And I used to be on TalkSport about Martin Jol. And because I had good contacts and I knew Martin a little bit, he at one stage thought I was living next door to him, because I brought a story out once that Daniel Levy had said, if you get so many points, I'm going to buy you a Porsche. And that Porsche car was delivered at Martin's house one morning, and it was beautiful. And I'd just heard from somebody else at Tottenham that car was actually delivered. So I happened to be on the radio that morning. So I said, well, Martin's done really well. And the Porsche, which had been promised, has just been delivered to him. And Martin was actually listening to the radio, hearing it, and he thought, this guy, Marcel, he lives just round the corner. He can actually look in the garden of my house. What's happening? And the story is even funnier because Martin found himself too big to sit in a Porsche.
I was going to say.
I
can't imagine him squeezing
in. Gave the car back to Daniel Levy. And he's been driving Range Rovers ever since, and he still does. I mean, he doesn't live far away, about 10 miles from me in Den Haag, the place where he was born and where he grew up. He's got 2 huge dogs, and he's happy with the life he's got. He stays out of the limelight. When he was at Spurs, he bought a lot of art, and he's always been a bit of an art, not want to say dealer, more a collector. He likes his stuff, and in that way, he was a very different manager, but a good one, I think, for Spurs.
Just a very quick one on him. Does he know how much he's loved, appreciated, and heralded at the club? I
actually wonder that a lot, because he stays out of the limelight a lot. He doesn't mix too much. And I know that he loved Spurs, and every manager, of course, gets a little bit affected when you leave a club. And I don't think he's even bothered to come and visit the club, and I think he should, because when there's a stage in your life when you don't coach anymore, forget about anything what's happened in the past. If he goes back, I'm sure he would be welcomed.
He would, really.
Absolute heroes. I mean, if you happen to see him or bump into him,
tell him.
Well,
say
to
him.
It to him.
Say to him
on the show. Get him on here. Get him on here, Marcel. We'll tell him.
The love for Martin Jol is absolutely huge, and it kind of upsets me a little bit that you say you don't know if he recognises that, because he should. The foundations of the club that Tottenham are now is built on Martin Jol, what he built at Tottenham. We were a joke before he got there. He turned us into something that was a bit more serious, and he should know how much we love him. I've got a tremendous amount of love for him, so please do tell him that he should come back.
I'll pass it on to him, and we'll see if we can get him over back to London.
Well, do that.
Talking about sort of other managers with sort of lack of hair. Arne Slot, obviously, now at Liverpool's got off to a brilliant start and a good result yesterday against Chelsea. But he was linked with us before.
Linked? It could have been there.
Well, this is the question, because how close really was it, or was he holding out for something notionally bigger, which I hate to say Liverpool is a bigger job than ours, but how close was it really?
It was very, very, very close, and I actually thought he was going to sign for him. Tottenham had done their scouting work very well on the manager. Daniel Levy had had good talks with him. Everything seemed to be in place, but I knew that from knowing the final directors, how tough it would be to get him out, and it would cost a lot of money. And there is a certain situation with his agent, Rafaela Pimenta, where maybe everything was not explained enough, clear in the bigger picture wasn't there, how much it would actually cost. And I think she went over telling Tottenham, look, you can get him out for X amount of money, which was way different from what Feyenoord were asking for. Feyenoord had just renewed his contract only a number of months before. He'd been hugely successful. He turned every player into really good players. Every new player was settling in. The way the team played, as we can see now with Liverpool, that is Arne Slot. And I think if the money side of it had been in an earlier stage very clear to Daniel Levy, he could have said, look, okay, if that's the picture, we'll do it or we don't. Now it became a period of messing about, negotiations, difficult talks, discussions, and everybody started to get irritated with each other. Final directors with Arne Slot, with Rafaela Pimenta, Daniel Levy got frustrated. And at the end, Arne Slot said, okay, I pull the plug myself, and in that way, I won't do it. It's a shame for Tottenham. I'm happy because he gave the club I follow a lot in the Netherlands, Feyenoord, gave them a great time, and the fans were really, really happy to keep him for another year. But we can all imagine that he could have done some great things for Spurs.
Yeah, interesting that I didn't know the insides and outs. That's really great insight. I think we're happy with Ange. We're happy with those, but he'd have been a very good manager for us. Marcel, really, really great to talk to you on those Spurs Duck connections. Thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
Thank
All
you.
the best.